We all want to feel respected in our relationships, but people can be complicated. And sometimes there are things that we really feel we need to say, but we can't quite figure out how to do it. It may be because we feel we may never agree, or maybe we're concerned that we might offend or upset someone. And if it happens at work, we might even be afraid we could be fired. The problem is, if people avoid saying what they really think, it can take a toll on relationships or makes it impossible to establish one in the first place. So how do you talk about something no one wants to talk about? In my freshman year of college, I had a close friend who was struggling. She was under a lot of pressure from her parents to go to medical school, but she did not want to go. So one day I asked, "Why don't you just tell your parents how you really feel?" And she said, "No way. I know how they are. That is not a conversation I could have. It would be a nightmare." So then I asked, "Well, what do you plan to do?" And she said, "I think I'll just fail enough courses that I have to drop out of school." Now, this took several months of pretending, but that was exactly what she did. Her parents were not happy at all, and their relationship was strained for a long time after that. Years later, as a clinical psychologist, I'm counseling a married couple. And in the first meeting, people are expected to come in, both individuals could come in to assess the issues so we can determine next steps. Well, in this first meeting, the wife was doing all of the talking and describing all the many things her husband was doing wrong. He rarely gave any response other than a smirk or an eye roll. After several minutes of hearing her complaining, I asked her to pause, and I turned to him and I said, "So what do you have to say about all of this?" And his answer was, "Nothing. She's not interested in anything I have to say anyway." He had shut down and given up on even trying to offer perspective because he really didn't believe she valued his opinion anyway. There was no surprise they were talking about separation before I met them. So both my friend and this patient were staying quiet and pretending to go along with what everyone expected of them. And a lot of people do this in situations like this. It's not uncommon. I actually work with a lot of couples who struggle with talking with each other, especially if they disagreed. And as time went on, I realized it's happening within our families and between friends and all sorts of professional contexts. But to ignore the problem just doesn't work. We become miserable, and the longer it goes on, the more harm is done. Now, we can try to smile and play nice, but we can't hold our opinions in and then say things not so nice behind closed doors. Other times, we may do and say nothing for so long that eventually it builds up inside of us and we explode or act out inappropriately. One way or the other, the truth will come out. But by then, it's too late, and the relationships are already damaged. I believe I have a better solution. After 20 years of treating patients and working in academia, I became the president of Des Moines University Medicine and Health Sciences. In my first few years, things were challenging as I adjusted to this new leadership role. One day, in my weekly meeting with my team members, I noticed something that concerned me. I got the impression that people were really not saying what they thought, even though I knew they didn't really agree with each other on everything. And after the meetings, I began to hear the whispers and the rumors that people really were not on the same page, but seemed afraid or felt it not safe to say so. So I thought, how can I get them to call out this elephant? Hold on, I have an idea. I have elephants at home. I'll just bring one to work. Now, in college, I happened to belong to a sorority that had a tradition of gifting elephant figurines to its members. The only condition was that it needed to look a little bit like this one with the trunk up, which symbolized reaching high aspirational goals. We would gift them during holidays, special occasions, birthdays, so I had quite a few of these at home. So I decided to bring a beautiful crystal elephant to the office that a sorority sister had given me, put it on the table for our next meeting. No one acknowledged it. No one said there was an elephant in the room. And as the meeting goes on, I realized no one was going to mention it. So I said, "Excuse me, did anyone see anything different in the room today?" One team member said, "Was that always there?" Another person said, "I saw it. It seemed fragile. I didn't want to touch it, didn't want to break it." So I told them this elephant was here the entire time, but no one wanted to talk about there being an elephant in the room. And some people didn't even seem to see that it was there. So I told them, from this point on, this elephant will remain here in the room to remind us that there are things that may be difficult to say, things that we may be thinking but may be afraid to say, but if we truly want to have open, honest dialogue, we need to start saying what we really think. A week later, the next team meeting, one of my team members came in, sat down, and said, "Can someone hand me that elephant? I have something to say today." And as time went on, people would begin to touch the elephant, say, "I have an elephant moment," or "I want to hold the elephant because I need to talk." And as new members joined us, they would point it out. "You see this elephant? Here, we deal with the elephant in the room." Now, it took a while for us to really get this going, but eventually team members began to value the open, honest dialogue that began to build camaraderie, trust, and respect. Now, this dynamic was tested over and over again as we dealt with many challenging situations as a team, the most ambitious being a decision we made to transform our university. After 100+ years of existence, my university made a bold decision to build an entirely new campus, literally from the ground up here in Iowa, on 88 acres of purchased farmland. And this was the most ambitious decision that involved board members, architects, designers, contractors, all working together. About a year into the project, I remember the day one of the architects came to me and said, "Normally, a project of this magnitude is a nightmare for us. It's really difficult. It's hard to get people to get to consensus. Decision-making moves slowly. How is it that you are able to make this work? What's different here?" And I said, "Let me tell you about the elephant." And I did. A week later, we're on the construction site, all in our hard hats on the trailers for the construction of our new campus. I walked into the room where our design team and our contractors were working. They have an elephant on the table. So I asked, "Well, this elephant," and they said, "We decided to take your lead." Now, to build an entire campus is an awesome undertaking. That could take up to a decade in most cases, from concept, design, and the actual construction. We built our entire new campus in 3 years, and we did it during the pandemic. And I truly believe our success was directly related to the level of trust within the teams and the ability that we had to have good conversations. Now, you can do this too, and this is what you need to do. First, you need to get yourself an elephant, right? An elephant figurine would be just fine. And it doesn't even have to have the trunk up, but get the cheapest elephant you can find. And if you really can't find an elephant, get a piece of paper and draw an elephant. And if it looks terrible and makes people laugh, that may be even better, that they will accept this elephant, right? So the next time you're wanting to have that conversation, take your elephant, put it on the table, and then say, "Today, we have an elephant in the room. And this elephant is here to symbolize those thoughts, feelings, and actions that might be difficult to talk about, that we may be afraid to say but need to say. So if you have an elephant, touch it, call it out, hold it, whatever you need to do, and tell us what's really on your mind." Now, it may be awkward in the beginning, but eventually, everyone in the room begins to feel freer and safer just talking to each other. There are elephants all around us. They're in our workplaces, they're in our homes, They're in places where friends and family members gather, and we can ignore them and pretend that they're not there. And maybe sometimes we may need to pretend that they're not there and not talk about everything we think. But if being quiet, and if we truly want to feel respected in them and have others feel respected in our presence, we must call out the elephant in the room. Thank you.